Welp, I finally did it. I finally defeated the Alpha Legion. So my longest standing opponent in Horus Heresy is my good buddy Lewis, who may as well be Alfarius for the amount of times he snatched victory from me through 20th Legion sneakiness. All of our many games of 2nd edition Horus Heresy, I never once beat him. Across at least a dozen games, he has consistently forced my poor Death Guard into defeat. Now don't get me wrong, they were always absolute colossal bloodbaths on both sides. Most games ended with us only having a couple of models left on the table by the end. But his skills with infiltration and tactical sniping always saw him claim victory. But now we're in 3rd edition, and the pressure is on. Before my game against Lewis, I had played 10 games of Horus Heresy 3rd edition in total, and I'm quite happy to say I have remained undefeated. That's 9 wins and 1 draw. So going into this first game of 3rd edition with Lewis, I can tell you I was an absolute nervous biscuit. We play regularly at the rather wonderful Goreballs in Glasgow. Check them out. Absolutely wonderful club. Cannot recommend it highly enough. In the past, Lewis has always absolutely annihilated my army's command structure with snipers, recons, and headhunter kill scenes. And this developed in me a rather cagey defensive style of play which always saw me losing in the end. So going into this, our very first game of 3rd edition, I decided to do something I have never done before. Use tactical nuance.
What?
And I'm happy to say that my mud-slogging 14th Legion finally claimed victory against our old enemy. Let's break it down. So kicking off the 2000 points with my primary Crusader detachment, my first choice was a High Command, Commander Davos Gorgoth, a Praetor with a Paragon Blade, a Combi Alchem Flamer, and Melta Bombs. My first command choice was Athanasius Troika the Byzantine, who is a Chaplain with a Crozius Arcanum and an Alchem Caster. My second command choice is one of my favourite units in the game, Harkon Judah, a Legion Champion armed with a Vocate Serpenta and Melta Bombs, and I've also given them the prime slot bonus of Paragon of Battle. I then have 4 troops choices: Squad Theta, a 10-man tactical squad led by a sergeant with a plasma pistol and a power sword, and they have a Vexilla and a Nuncio Vox. Squad Gamma, a 10-man tactical squad led by a sergeant with a power weapon and an Alchem Caster, also with a Vexilla and a Nuncio Vox. Squad Iota, a 10-man tactical squad led by a sergeant with a chainsword, also with a Vexilla and a Nuncio Vox. And finally, Squad Beta, a 10-man despoiler squad led by a sergeant with an Alchem Caster and a Thunderhammer. They also contain 2 Alchem Casters and a Power Axe, a Vexilla and a Nuncio Vox, and their prime slot bonus will be a logistical benefit. I'm bringing 3 light transports, the first one being a Rhino with a Hunter Killer Missile, a Heavy Flamer and a Dozer Blade. The second being a Rhino with a Multi-Melta and a Dozer Blade. And finally a Termite with twin Heavy Flamers, another one of my favourite units in 3rd edition. My Praetor also unlocks an Army Vanguard, and I'm bringing one selection from this. I'm bringing Hinderer Squad, also known as the Trench Reapers, a 5-man Seeker Squad all armed with Kraken Bolters, a Nuncio Vox, and the Sergeant also has an Alchem Caster. My champion's unlocking a Veteran Cadre, and my first selection from this is the Day of Tears and Mourning, an 11-man Mortis Poisoner Squad, one of my favourite units in 3rd edition. They are all armed with Alchem Flamers except for the Sergeant, who is armed with a regular Flamer, Phosphex Bombs, and they also bring a Nuncio Vox. The second choice for the Veteran Cadre is Curse You All Men, a Land Raider Carrier with a hull mounted twin Heavy Flamer, a pintle mounted Heavy Flamer, and 2 twin Last Cannon Sponsons. And finally, the logistical benefit from Squad Beta is For Whom the Bell Tolls, a second Land Raider Carrier. This one kitted out with hull mounted Last Cannons, a pintle mounted Multi-Melta, and 2 twin Last Cannon Sponsons. So, my master plan? Use the Land Raiders to drive up the field, using them as cover for the Rhinos with the tactical squads. Meanwhile, my Chaplain would lead the remaining tactical squad on foot, keeping them moving even under the deluge of sniper fire which would be heading their way. Chaplains, by the way, really good unit, don't sleep on them. That cool 10 is rather spicy. Mwah. Then once all my transports were in place, I would then unleash a massive infantry assault all in one turn, hopefully with the Seekers bursting up in the Termite behind the enemy lines at the same time. My Poisoners, which are absolutely one of my favourite squads of 3rd edition, are a total glass cannon. They are there to absolutely decimate a single unit in one turn of fire. Meanwhile, my own Seekers would try and pop some statuses on some tactical squads, or even try and take out a character, or maybe even a Terminator with some oppressive breaching fire.
I faced off against an infantry heavy Alpha Legion backed by a Plasma Contemptor and 2 batteries of laser rapiers, guns that would leave my Land Raiders burning husks if I wasn't careful. We used the Liber Objectum unofficial mission pack for both deployment and also mission type. Our deployment was Vanguard Strike, and the mission was Push the Line, a mission where objectives will bounce back and forth between the enemy lines after they're scored. Lewis deployed his army in a wide gun line led by both his Terminators and Contemptor, while his Seekers and his Headhunters deployed in no man's land, but still quite far away from my deployment zone.
I knew that these guys would be a total problem if I didn't deal with them fast.
I got first turn. The tanks all moved up, firing into the Headhunters and the Recon squads, applying some good old-fashioned 14th Legion overkill to try and protect the infantry that would show up in turn 2. However, a singular multi-melta Headhunter remained, and nobody wants a precision multi-melta running around.
Very unusually for me, I didn't score anything in the first turn. I hoped that when the infantry assault came, it would score me big in turn 2 and every turn beyond.
Lewis's army surged forward, while his rapiers drew beads on both my Land Raiders, going for the bigger targets instead of the rhinos. I was saved only by Lewis's atrocious luck with dice rolls and some very, very fortunate smokescreen saves. The Chaplain squad naturally came under heavy fire and routed, not even the steely conviction of the Chaplain holding under sniper and C-beam fire. Lewis scored 2 of the objectives, and as per the mission briefing, they moved 6 inches towards my deployment zone.
Turn 2 was absolute chaos.
The Land Raiders and Rhinos pushed super aggressively, with the tactical squads pouring out to capture the objectives. The Poisoners also deployed to put pressure on his Seekers, who were still capable of unleashing 18 rounds of precision breaching pinning death. The Termite burst out next to his Vigilator and his attendant recon team, letting the Seekers deploy in the enemy lines.
There was suddenly a lot of templates and firepower on my side of the battlefield.
At this point, I ignored his heavier stuff and focused on his snipers and specialists, confident I could go toe to toe with his regular squads. The Termite nuked the Vigilator and his squad with its Melta array and heavy flamers, fusing the snipers to the ruins they skulked in. Curse You All Men bathed the enemy tacticals in fire from its triplet of heavy flamers, while its last cannons took out the remaining recons. The Poisoners engaged their deadly toxic payload onto the enemy Seekers, who returned fire with their Kraken bolters. An intense firefight broke out between the 2 elite squads, bathed in the sickly green glow of alchemical death. After inflicting a massive 47 wounds with the Alchem Flamers, the Seekers lay dead, boiling and melted within their armour, while half the Poisoners, including the Poison Master, were in bloody ruins as well.
So I genuinely made a really big mistake here. My Poisoners should have shot the tactical squad that was above them first, and then they should have tried to assault the Seekers after that, thus nullifying their return fire. I could have chucked a rad grenade at them, or even a Phosphex grenade for a bit of that good old panic, and I genuinely think my Poisoners could have taken the Seekers in hand-to-hand combat. But Lewis has ingrained in me an absolute fear of Alpha Legion Seekers, and so I just wanted them off the table as soon as possible. And you know what? If forcing a 9-man squad to take 47 saves doesn't do it, then nothing will.
For whom the bell tolls fired into his Praetor and his Despoilers in the hope of softening the blow when they inevitably charged. Spoiler alert, it did not. Despite killing several, the Alpha Legion warriors held their nerve. My Chaplain and his tactical squad hit the board edge, but thankfully did not flee and decided to re-enter the fight. I also scored big in turn 2, with the objectives moving back towards Lewis's deployment zone.
When Lewis's turn came, it was with fiery retribution, the Hydra still very much having fangs, even at this point.
The Lernaean Terminators unleashed a dreaded conversion beamer and a wall of heavy bolter fire into my Seekers, killing 2 of them and forcing them to rout, the Specialist Astartes choosing expediency over valour. The Rapiers drew lines of fire on the Melta Rhino, detonating it instantly, but the other Rapier failed to scratch the Land Raider's thick hull plating. His Praetor assaulted my tacticals with the remaining despoilers, massacring most of the squad, who despite the brutality in losing 6 of their number, held their nerve. His Contemptor and his tacticals hurled themselves at the poisoners, killing 3 and forcing the elite destroyers to flee, woefully ill-equipped to deal with the rampaging war machine. However, the ruins impeded the Contemptor's pursuit, earning the poisoners a brief reprieve. Squad Beta, led by Commander Davos Gorgoth and Champion Judah, stormed from their Land Raider, eyes set on the enemy commander, keen to rescue their brothers in the tactical squad. With the game now at the midpoint and with their squads delivered, the Land Raiders now turned their attention to the heavy hitters. Curse You All men drove through the Contemptor and Tactical Marines, crushing one unfortunate Marine under its treads before unleashing its firepower on the enemy Rapiers, who, although suffering horrendous casualties under the tank's assault, finally inflicted 3 damage in return. The Termite, certain that its time was short, drove point blank into the other Rapier and unleashed its Melta and Heavy Flamers, melting both platforms in fusion fire before itself dying to the Rapier's lasers. All that was left of the ruins was a smoking crater and burning corpses. For whom the Beltos meanwhile set its sights on the Lernaean Terminators and unleashed its full volley into the squad, killing 3 of their number. The surviving Rhino speared through the mud and ruins towards the enemy tactical squad, bathing them in burning promethium and causing the squad to panic. Meanwhile, Chaplain Troika finally regained full control of his squad and led them charging across the battlefield to reclaim one of the objectives. With a bellow, Davos led Squad Beta into the swirling melee in the centre, with Harkon shoving through the armoured press to challenge the enemy commander. They traded blows, the Alpha Legion commander contemptuously laying 2 wounds on the champion thanks to the Alpha Legion's unique gambit, I am Alfarius, laughing at the Death Guard brute's lack of skill.
The Alpha Legion's gambit, much like them, is a sneaky one. When the gambit is selected, the opposing player's model combat initiative is reduced. And by reduced, they mean set to 1. 1. The score is set to 1. Needless to say, my champion was in trouble.
But Harkon is a paragon of battle, and despite bleeding from numerous wounds, seized the initiative in the following round, scoring 3 critical hits with his Paragon Blade, beheading the enemy commander with a colossal swipe. Davos and Squad Beta hacked apart the remaining Alpha Legion before turning to face the inevitable charge of the Terminators. By capturing all 3 of the objectives and slaying the enemy warlord, I'd really put myself back on the scoreboard in a huge way, and all I could do is wait to see what new tricks Lewis would have up his sleeves. The Alpha Legion were bloodied, but they were far from broken, and could still snatch victory if they only killed my warlord and took out my scoring units. The Contemptor fired plasma shots into my poisoners, killing the remainder of the squad with a pinpoint explosion hotter than the surface of any sun, before charging into the central tactical squad, swinging its colossal power fist. Its assault mangled the survivors with horrific ease. The mighty war machine, seeing its bloody work done, claimed the central objective for the Alpha Legion. The Alpha Legion tactical squad fired 30 mass reactive rounds into their counterparts, slaying half of them and forcing the Death Guard to retreat under the heavy barrage. This was a huge move, as it potentially meant I wouldn't be able to score the right hand objective in my next turn. The Terminators smashed through the terrain, hungry to avenge their commander. They charged into the deluge of Alchem Flame and small arms fire with ease, their combi bolters laying low several of the despoilers. They however were cut down by Harkon and Davos, who met them head on with all the spiteful fury the 14th Legion are famous for. Striking at a higher initiative, the 2 commanders cut the heavily armoured warriors down before the Terminators could raise any kind of assault in kind. With the death of their Praetor and the Terminators, the fight left the Alpha Legion, who started to fall back as panic started to erupt from the constant barrage of alchemical flame from the Death Guard. Seeing their work done, Davos led his squad back into the Land Raider, directing the tank's gunners to take down the enemy dreadnought. The Land Raiders dealt killing blows to the Contemptor and the remaining Alpha Legion squads. The smoke settled, the gunfire stopped, the flamers guttered out, Death Guard Turn 4 wound down, and the 14th Legion had taken the day. With only a severely battered tactical squad remaining, Lewis nobly conceded defeat.
A thematic, devastating, bloody, and absolutely brilliant game. The undefeated streak is still on, baby! Honestly though, it's great having an opponent like Lewis who you can play consistently and always presents you with a really thematic and challenging game to play. A devious puzzle that you have to unpick. But I'm sorry Lewis, this time I solved the puzzle. He'll absolutely be back though, no doubt with a fire raptor which I saw him sneaking under his coat as he left the club. Horus Heresy is great because of opponents like Lewis. And because sometimes, rarely, you defeat the Alpha Legion. Thanks for watching.